just try and see how this goes.
Just try and see how this goes. And I think we have...
and I just try to talk like we were talking.
What do you mean? Talk normal, is what you're saying.
Don't talk like there's something recording us all of a sudden. Your first words out, it sounded like, okay, now we're just gonna sit and chat.
Gonna sit and chat. You're having a third eye under your chin, looking at you.
Is your heart pulsing
It is.
faster?
It's probably picking it up in the mic. Oh my God, we're on.
Oh my God, we're on.
I didn't even warm up.
Isn't that? I'm feeling it too.
It's odd. It's like, okay, now I'll be evaluated later.
You know what it reminds me of a bit? There's a thing, I can't remember what it's called. It's to do with, I was going to say, when in research, when people are being observed, the observer effect.
Yeah, absolutely. This is totally what it feels like, the third eye under my chin.
And then the thing is we're not necessarily even going to use this.
I know, but still, it's being recorded.
It's being recorded. Oh my God, they're recording us.
God. You know, when we were walking yesterday, I saw, I think it was last night when we were coming back after our evening walk there, and we passed that young kid walking on the road. He was kind of tall, wearing a red t-shirt and stuff. He's just a young guy, lives in the neighborhood. He was walking that way and we're coming home.
Oh, yeah.
And we passed him on the road and stuff.
I hate when Yeah.
It's very New York. Yeah. But as he's walking towards me, I looked at him, I go, yeah, he's a young guy, he's athletic, he's fit, but he's also got that side-to-side weave going on. And I went, that's what I look like in my first year at the BFA when we had to, all we had to do was we were being recorded. So the camera was at one end of the room. We just had to walk across the dead center, turn, face the camera, and just walk towards the camera. And that was our first year recording, just to see how we moved. And then at the end of the third year, we watched it at the movement instructor's house at our goodbye party and stuff. So he popped on the video of us at the beginning of the year and at the final year. And that blocky side-to-side walk that he was doing, I go, that's exactly how I was walking.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, back when I thought, I'm 20, what was I, 26? I'm 26, I know how to walk. I know how to breathe. I've been breathing my whole life. And then finding out, I didn't know how to breathe because I couldn't.
Well, you didn't know how to breathe as an actor in a way that doesn't look awkward as fuck. Yeah,
and I didn't have the tools to preserve my voice for emotional scenes and stuff. I didn't know how to. I didn't have how to do it twice on Wednesday and 6 shows a week or 8 shows a week.
I really liked that talk that we had recently, and reminding, because I know we've talked about it before, but recently where we went a lot more in depth about it, about how to. The layers of what it takes to actually do a thing, Like you said, I know how to walk, I know how to breathe, and that's why so many things, when they're done well, they look easy, but it's been years of practice to get to the point, even for us, to start to try to calm a little. There's nobody here but us, and we're both nervous. What is that, But that, and there's a cat trying to...
My voice pitched up an octave.
You're like, oh no. Okay, it's us. We're here. We don't need to use this if we don't want. But when the stand-up gig...
Longest 20 minutes of my life. 20 minutes set. The time I did a 20-minute set? Yeah, I remember.
The time when I started my watch timer because I had contractually obligated to my client that guy from Corner Gas is going to come, that funny guy is going to come and do maybe 5 to 10 minutes or longer, my hope was longer, out of my 30 to 45 minutes that I was obligated, and that would come off of my time if you're interested in having this guy come and do this, right? At that time, when I pressed my watch timer
And 20 minutes later,
and it hit 2 minutes and 43 seconds, and I hear my name called as I have a mouthful of rice pilaf I'm trying to eat. Thankfully, wasn't paid in rice pilaf this time.
Well, there's a lot of lessons there. One of them being prepare. Don't just try and wing it.
And do some your two street jokes. Your stolen street jokes.
My two jokes. They weren't stolen. I thought them up myself. They were.
Were they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I made them up.
Oh,
just moments
well, then they're
before.
Not street jokes. No. They're yours.
Yeah.
But you did. Oh, so that's the trying out new material. Oh, see, I always thought those were just something.
No, I made that. That was a story that was in my head.
They were funny.
Yeah.
They would more of them would have been.
I don't know, but I didn't get a chance to work them. I didn't get a chance to flagpole them or whatever the term is.
Flagpole.
Is that a thing?
I don't know.
You run up the flagpole, see how,
You just made up a new term.
See? I'm just making shit up.
See, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Just like, no, that was, and then when there was, when there was no one titter perhaps, I had much more fun doing the door prizes.
Yeah,
that was fun.
The pressure it wasn't like this.
Yeah.
Gun to your head, go, and go.
We just call out numbers and have some fun and make people laugh and
even though you don't seem incredibly receptive to ever doing stand-up, I don't know if it's only that. Was that the thing that made you less inclined, or did you already have kind of an aversion to the thought of doing stand-up, or that just sort of last nail in the stand-up comedy coffin?
Yeah, it's like don't do it unprepared.
Oh, okay.
And give yourself time to write some jokes and stuff, or even thoughts, or how to tell it. What are you going to do? You figure that out and you'll be laughing. It's like a keynote, right?
And that reminds me of what happened to me in grade 9.
Well, it's not normal to talk in front of people.
No, but that's what I'm saying, but reminds me of grade 9, I had been the class clown in English class, and Mr. Pachieski in English class, I got away with a lot. I could do no wrong pretty much, and I got to write notes up on the board, and I could do whatever. Like he's like, oh, here, and I'm like, oh, I'll do that. Like I kind of I could do no wrong. I got away with stuff. I was a little bit of a brat, but he didn't say anything. He was a bit of a softie, but liked him.
Yeah.
But I think I liked him because I got to be in control.
Yeah.
So I think what happened was I deluded myself into thinking, what oral presentation, had to cadence it out for 60 to 90 seconds, and what's the problem? And what's the problem with that? Like I didn't even think that it was possible to be scared. It didn't enter my mind because I had gone up, kind of like the difference between door prizes and stand up, okay, you're on, spotlight. So doing the stuff and just off the cuff and like, whatever, that's funny. But got up, did the oral presentation, practiced it, didn't have any inkling that I could be nervous, uncomfortable. I got up there, my 90-second presentation, I think I did it in 20 seconds. I might have sounded like one of those sped up chipmunks or something. And at 20 seconds I was done. Started to hyperventilate partway through almost. Like I was and then got off, and then I had to go out into the hallway. I didn't even know what was happening to me. It caught me so off guard that I had no inclination to even be aware. And then after that that was horrible. And then over time wanting to pursue how to deal with that, because that was my first time that I can acknowledge a panic attack or anxiety attack.
My first public speaking was like in grade 4. It was kind of this same deal, a class presentation, but the assignment was you're supposed to have done your homework and started writing a short story for this class. And then you had to get up and read what you wrote in front of the class. So I was in the class going, fuck, they'll never call me. Yeah, they'll never call me. Nah. What are the chances, Lorne? Oh. So I went up there, I had my book, and I didn't do any work at all. I had a title. I think it was called The Fireman and the Ghost or something like that. And that's and the rest was just a blank sheet.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I stood up there in front of the class and I just started making up a story about this fireman in the house and a ghost and this and that and the other thing. And all of a sudden I could feel the heat and the temperature in the room rise, the flush feeling falling to my feet and my head getting a bit light and woozy. And I'm looking around and my teacher looked at me, Mrs. Day, bless her heart. She looked at me and she noticed that I'd turned white. All the blood dropped to my feet, and I was just so. And I started to hyperventilate a little bit. And she ran up and held on to me, and then put my head between my legs because all the blood was down in my lower extremities. And then she put my head and catch my breath because I was starting to go. And and she held me there, and then she walked me out with my head between my knees out the door so I could go sit down in the hallway to
so
get
you
my
had
breath
it.
back. Yeah. So
you had it 5 years before I did.
So instead of having that, that like you of saying, oh, I'm going to figure out how I can do this and this, I went, I'll never speak in public ever again. And I kind of stuck to it until...
Well, and I can't say, it wasn't immediate.
Yeah.
When I say I wanted to face that, I think I stayed ashamed for years after that. Like, if that was grade 9, so what did I do? I think I felt shame and horror at some level, but I had plenty of other stuff to feel shame and horror about, moving around
so that was
and
grade 4,
other
and then
stuff.
the next gem piece of I moved to a new school. I was in a new school, and we were like at that time, and it was a school that I'd played soccer against a couple weeks before, and we got into a little bit of a pushing, shoving match on the pitch when we were playing soccer, like inter-school soccer. So it was St. Kevin's versus St. Patrick's, and we got into a shoving match, and we won, and we were like, they were upset about it, and we got into a shouting match, and then 2 weeks later, I moved into that school, and they still remember. Some of the guys still remember. Hey, were you that? Yeah, and I go, yeah, I was, and I'm thankful I had my older brother Lewis, who was a couple of grades ahead of me, and he was riding shotgun to make sure that we didn't get beat up, and because he was a scrapper, and he watched my back and stuff. But then we were a couple of weeks later, I think I was still a new kid in class, and they had a weird setup. It was a weird module where you sat in circles around a desk, and you had the lessons in a box that you pulled out, and you had to. It was just a weird new teaching method of. I forget what it was called, but anyways, you sit in groups and you worked in groups and you did this topic and stuff. And I remember we didn't have any food at the house, but we had an account at the store, at the corner store. We had an account. So, being responsible, grade 7 age students that we were, of course, I filled up on chips and pop and chocolate and for my lunch and a couple of bananas and then went to school, and then all of a sudden I ate junk and I was feeling queasy and gross, and I was sitting with my group and stuff, and I didn't feel good and wheezy, and all of a sudden blah.
Oh no!
Puked all over the table. Yeah, in front of the classrooms, and everyone's like, and they're like, and I'm like, and then I went to the bathroom, and then never went back to school that day. I just left the side door and went home and go, I ain't going back in there and have everyone poke fun at me and stuff.
Yeah.
No, which I can live with that for another day.
And sorry, what grade was that again?
7.
Grade 7.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, and then I know you and I obviously have talked about this a lot, but you went to how many schools between kindergarten and grade 12?
Oh, I don't know, 8 or so. Maybe.
I thought it was 10.
Maybe.
I thought.
Could be 10. I don't know.
Yeah, I went to 11.
Yeah.
I went to 11.
I know you went to more than I did, so yeah.
Well, not trying to win, but
you win.
But that thing though of what we ended up learning too about adaptability and about having to adjust to new environments and how that shaped some of the things that we've become and what we learn to face. Like, kids can be mean, and kids have no filters. They're still learning, and so that thing, I think too, that common thread for us about finding the humor and then learning how to mold to what you're in. And then I know it doesn't mean it's like that grass is always greener thing about you having an older sibling that would back you up. And I was on my own, so I have that lone wolf, but also being female and then going in, and then Mean Girls and the whole, just the dynamic, and having moved around to all the different types of groups. Sometimes I was like what they'd call them, the headbangers or the skids, or you're with the nerds, or you're with the wherever, and I was all over the place. And sometimes it was like, not any port in a storm, but how many times, and I think this is something I think we've sort of talked about, but what that did for learning how to be unpopular and not liked and not having friends, but what an important skill that is, because then you had to be more intrinsically motivated by things, because you couldn't look to your peers or your friends because you didn't have any, you know, so you had to become self-sufficient because you'd hit the ground and you needed to know where things were. You had to find your way to class. You had to learn how to get from your new house moving around. Like I can't even say between kindergarten and grade 12, I think you moved houses probably more than I did. The most I had, I think, in 1 year was 3 times at one school, like 3 times in grade 8. I went to 3 different schools, 1 in Victoria and 2 in Prince George when my uncle passed away at the age of 31. So back into Prince George, where I'd had a lot of, you know, oof, even my guts right now, I have that feeling again of having to come back to a place I thought I'd never go back to, but having to learn how to adjust and adapt and go, okay, what's this? And you got to learn people's energy and pick out who the people are and how to maneuver within and how to deal with bullies and people saying shit about you, or being like that reading energies, like how much that's come in handy. But for you too, like, so going to a new school, like having to adjust, hit the ground running, what's your take on I've heard you talk too about learning to be funny. Like, I think that's a common thread we have.
That was my saving grace, was I was able to be funny even though I didn't know what I was doing. I was just being funny. But it was when I started honing that skill, it's when I remember Lewis saying, hey, you can rent stuff from the library, and we had a record player that worked for a while. And I went, oh, okay. So I went and I rented Flip Wilson.
Like check out all sorts of kinds of...
Yeah, I just started listening to all these comedy guys, and sometimes I would steal their jokes and insert different words, but it would get laughs. And
learn timing and learn comedic timing and see...
and then also being that funny guy, being the lippy guy, smart alecky guy, I also learned where the line was. I mean, you don't cross it. When I started making fun of my teacher in front of the class, and he did not like it, and he called me on it, and
I had one of those.
Sent me to the office because I was made a comment about his wardrobe choice or something, and he was like, "Okay, that's enough." And it was like dead call. Okay, I liked them too, which was the hard part, because I liked them and it was, and also another friend of mine, a close friend, who was like one of my best friends. He was, because I was always making jokes about something, and then he looked at me and said, "Do you always got to make fun of everything?" I went, "I guess I don't." I guess.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I was thankful for it later, but at the time, I'm going, "Oh, that's."
Learning to not be on all the or inserting,
when he's trying to talk serious and I'm making a joke about something, it's kind of like, okay, you can have a certain amount of patience to go, okay, you know what, you're not a serious person, so I'm not gonna. Yeah,
the restraint. Restraint being just as much a part of, and that makes me think too of what we've talked about before in anything where you're, especially performance-wise, like theater, keynote, stand-up, but where we've talked before about needing to have the, hopefully honing the skill of being able to let the audience react and giving them time, and then being able to be agile enough, because how much audiences, and it's like, who wouldn't want them to laugh really hard, but when they laugh for too long and the timing's off, and learning to have to, because if you're doing like the rule of three, which we had talked about recently, if you're going, you know, punch, 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 but they start laughing too hard at number 2, and then you got to wait long, and then by the time you get to 3, they're already laughed out. Being prepared that sometimes that and then that sometimes when they laugh at a certain thing on a day, and you're like, what was that?
And working with that voice director, he was like, slow, medium, fast.
Yeah.
Give me three. So when he said, give me 3, I knew what he meant, slow, medium, fast.
A variety.
Yeah.
And I liked the way that video just talked about it in ways of, and I had articulated it that way as well. And I think, again, because from whether it's graphic design or art or photography or asymmetry, and the rule of 3 creates asymmetry as well. You can't pair things. There's not the 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4. It's 1 and 2 and an oddball. So it already sets up something that's a bit off. It's a bit odd because you can't pair the things. So, but seeing the repetition of that over and over again and going, it's fascinating.
And it's funny how some people aren't aware of it or can't pick it up, or like for me, it's second nature to it's timing of something, timing of a delivery, something I've learned, and then once I knew what I was learning about, how to hone it, how to perfect it, and being aware of how long is too long, and what am I giving away ahead of time by a look at anticipation. Oh, this is going to be funny. I'm going to try to teach one guy I was in a play with, and it was and he had the killer punchline, and he was just convinced that my character was a funny one, so it doesn't matter what he says because you got the big laugh. And we had to stop and pull him aside and go, just wait for the audience's laughter to drop a couple of points before you deliver your line, because you'll get a bigger laugh than I did. He said, no, but you're the funny one. You're the funny character. You know, they're gonna. I go, yeah, but in this situation, let it drop, let the laughter start coming down a little bit before you deliver your line. Just breathe, just
oh my God, I feel tension even hearing you going, come on, but then
he finally did it, and then he experienced it, and then he got excited, and then he became the comedy master after.
Asshole. No, but
he thought he was a comedy master.
The sarcasm. But then sometimes too, somebody getting a bigger laugh and experiencing that in stand-up, I will say, and this is some that I went into stand-up thinking, hey, can't we all, like a bit kind of naive, even though I was doing. I was new to comedy. I wasn't new to life, but I had this thing about, it's all laughter, and it's like, I know better. I had done improv and theater sports, though, which I think tainted me a little towards thinking, yes, and everybody will, and let's do this, and it must be nice to have all of these people sort of doing that kind of let's work together thing.
Well, thank goodness for background coming in handy like that. Like the only thing that got me through high school, I didn't fall into the popular kids, that whole stereotypical high school experience. I totally missed that because I was working. I had a job. I was working. I had working in the kitchen. I was a busboy when I was started working in grade 9.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that was your first job. Was grade 9?
I think so. Ish, around there, 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah,
but
same for me.
Besides doing the paper route thing, which I did for a couple of years as well. But, when you're in grade 7 or something, you're walking through snowdrifts to deliver the paper. That's, and then collecting the money that people owe you for the week or whatever. So it was, and you have they give you a monetary amount that you have to bring in, and anything excess is your profit and stuff. So you have to collect that money, and if you're short, you owe that money. So it was a real world experience kind of thing. But in grade 8 or grade 9, and I started working. Being a busboy, I started working with adults.
Yeah.
So, and then in grade
You'll-
10, I was working more. I would cut school to pick up a lunch shift just to make more money, to have money. So, because we didn't have a lot. So,
Yeah.
eating was a good thing. That's why I like working
Yeah.
in restaurants, because I was able to get at least a couple of meals there. But but learning how different rules are. Like my first job was a busboy at the state board, and I got hired. I lied about my age, and they said, okay, it's the uniform is dress pants and white shirt and a tie and stuff. And I went, oh, okay. And I went home, and I didn't have a fucking tie. I didn't have a dress pants, and so I showed up to work with the only non-running shoe I had, which was a light brown boot, and it was kind of vinyl-y, and black pants and a clip-on bow tie and a white shirt. That was, and the guy looked at me and he goes, "That's not exactly," but when you get your first paycheck, where you're going to get some black pants and black shoes and a black tie, and I went, yeah, okay, but there I was trying to be nonchalant and clashing. I'm sure the diners had pity on me too, going, oh, that poor guy, let's leave an extra tip so he can get some shoes that aren't plastic vinyl boots. But it's like, yeah. All right, but there I was working and learning how to be a busboy, like what my job is. I don't know, but I'm in front of strangers, so being in front of strangers again, it was helped me get over that.
You right now.
Yeah, but that was a world experience, and all through high school, it was like, okay. Then I met another guy who was working as well, so we ended up working in the same place, and then
mature in a different
so about being popular and going to high school parties is
that
like,
was just
you know what,
kinda, who gives
was
a
at
shit?
a party last night with adults in a bar.
I would gravitate because I think too, because of that maturity level, the awareness of adult things comes faster when you have to work, or you learn early that sink or swim thing. It was hard at the time, and you don't know, but I know what it did for me. Back to the thing of comparing to kids caring whether they had the latest thing, and when by comparison you're going, I wonder, but ours was. Mine was a different set of, this is what's challenging.
I was buying my own clothes, and when I was in grade 10, because no one else's, so I had to. That's why I was working to make money, so I can buy some, because I was going through a growth spurt. Yeah. And I was wearing hand-me-downs. Like I wore this one shirt. It was my favorite shirt because it was a nice plaid design on it. It was a nice red, and it looked really good. It was a really nice shirt, and my sister gave it to me, so I didn't really know what was different about it until I tried to button it up, and it buttoned the other way, which I didn't know. I just thought it was maybe French fashion or something like that, and then I wore it, and then somebody pointed out that it was a girl's shirt because it buttoned up the other way, which I was like, oh. So luckily I grew out of it, but that's why I was such a clothes horse later on, and I always I needed to buy new clothes, new this, new that, because I didn't have it growing up.
That's why our closets are.
That's why, dwindled down. But
our closets runneth over.
Clothing was very important to me because it was a sense of security, but it also made me feel better, and that's why I was so upset when my brother would steal my new clothes, and then he'd bring them back and they'd be stretched out, or he'd wash it in hot water, and all the colors would be fade, or come back with blood stains on it, and it's like, great. Thanks for wrecking this nice shirt I had there, which I was looking forward to. But
I can think of that. Now that I think back in hindsight too, I did go through a big phase with that too in my teens and 20s, or when you could find a way to get the money. So that and an extraordinary amount probably by comparison to what would have been smart, but that trying to feel better and try to look like you come from something like that, that thing about what it does for how you feel about yourself or trying to give yourself the appearance of, well, it must be nice what those people get to have, and then trying to dress in a way that you emulate that. But oh my God, that fraud and imposter thing too, how that feeds into, and then to find out how many people have it. How many people, surprising. Pretty much everybody except for maybe psychopaths.
Interesting is the amount of people that we meet in our profession, stand-up and actors and in the film entertainment business, is how many people are incredibly shy, are still like that, and they feel odd, they feel like frauds. And it's like throughout the whole industry, there's everyone. It really
is everybody, really.
Yeah, it's so insecure. There's so many insecure people, which is surprising, but it's not surprising at the same time.
Yeah,
but it's just amazing how insecure people tend to, I'm so insecure, I'm going to be a film actor. Or I'm going to be an actor. I'm so insecure and shy, I'm going to be an actor. And
the egos and the masking of it. It is, but then it also feels like a thing of trying to do something to prove that you aren't the piece of garbage that you're telling yourself you are inside of your head sometimes, or fighting against that and going, how do I work through it?
The simplest thing is it's a welcoming community. Like when you get on a show, you have instant family and instant friends because you're on this journey together to do this show. So you have weeks of rehearsal backstage, and then you work on to getting on
you're talking
stage.
Theater,
or even film. It's the same thing. Film, TV. You move on set, and then
sometimes though.
And then.
Well, I mean,
I'm not saying it all. But
but that's all I mean is back to when I can think of times where vibes on, without naming names, but certain shows, and there was one that I recall when you had called me, or we had talked a few times, and it was some of the MOW vibe without talking about who they are, and these two people, and I'm like, who are they? But you did the work, because it's like, it's working and work, and sometimes it's, like, I like that story you said, I think it was Michael Caine, about somebody having opinions about, why did you do that movie? Well, he wanted to buy his mom a house. Or in some cases, it's like, pay the bills.
Yeah.
It's not all the residuals and rolling and dough that everyone thinks. Sorry, go ahead.
I forget when it was some A-list actors, when they get questioned about film choices and stuff like that, and he goes, well, did you really like it? And it's like, well, when their check clears, I love it.
But back to the thing, though, that I remember speaking with you and getting this vibe, and then I felt very protective of you. Like I wanted to show up there and start to almost, heckle them with them overhearing me say stuff that I know would, like, it made me want to go in and do something to protect. Not that you needed my protection, but I just remember they're being so self-absorbed. But when I think back about it, it's because they are the stars of MOWs. They aren't the stars of like a Christopher Nolan movie. They're not Al Pacino. They're not Julia Roberts level, and they never will be. So it's like high school all over again, and seeing that. So I knew that, but my instinct, just like it was back in high school, is if it's, arrogant snobs or bullies or them not welcoming you in, it made me want to go in and like put them in a chokehold or roundhouse kick somebody and go, don't be an arrogant asshole. Be nice. I don't like that. I didn't. And that if somebody's not going to welcome you in, it made me mad. It made me feel pissy about them. But that's also, again, that thing of just what it was, knowing what it was like for me, that I wished that I would have had somebody, which is why I think when we talk about it, in my mind, I think it gives me this version of, I have this more romanticized version of what it is for you to have had an older brother that would stand up for you, and that I didn't have that. I didn't have somebody standing up for me, so I had to be it. And then as a female, like as a girl as well, having to learn how to maneuver, especially in Mean Girlsville. Like, holy, that's a thing unto itself.
Yeah.
But
Because yours stopped blinking. Oh, there.
I'm still blinking. But we're
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
We've run the
This is
course,
good.
but
Getting used to speaking without.
But I like-
We're on.
I like doing this.
Yeah.
So I think
See what happens. Yeah, see
the
what we do with
idea.
it.
So just to, if this ends up for listeners, this was our first go at just deciding to do brainstorming ideas, recording it, whether we'll use this for something or not, whether we listen back and just let her rip, put it to some kind of visual, or chop up pieces or not. We'll see where we go with
Or
this.
ideas for other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, kind sir.
Thank you, beautiful lady.
My love.